Okay, today we're going to be talking about evaluating functions. This is something that you've done actually a lot of, so this shouldn't be anything too crazy, but we just need to bring it back to the forefront of your mind. Let's remember that that you need to be able to do this three different ways. You need to be able to do it with a calculator. You need to be able to do it from a table. You need to be able to do this from a graph. So we're going to explore all three ways. We're going to do two examples, then we're going to be done. This shouldn't be too painful today. So what does evaluating a function mean? To evaluate a function means I'm going to choose a value for x, our input, our independent variable. I'm going to choose a value. And what I want to know is what is the output? What is the y value when x is that particular value? So take, for example, this one right here. Say, for example, I want to know my function is f of x equals x squared plus 3x minus 6. And the question is, what is the value of f of 2? Whatever goes inside these parentheses means put that everywhere where you see an x. So if we were to do this by the calculator, and we're going to do this also by a table, and we're also going to do this by a graph, but if we were to do this by the calculator, sort of by hand, if you will, f of 2 means everywhere where I see an x, I'm going to put in 2. And then I'm just going to simplify this, and I'll know exactly what f of 2 is. So I'm just going to go to the calculator. I'm going to go to a regular screen, and I'm going to type in 2 squared. I'm going to type in exactly what I have here. So 2 squared plus 3 times 2 minus 6. And I'm going to find that f of 2 is 4. And that would be your answer. F of 2 is 4. So that means that when my input is 2, my output is 4. When my x value is 2, my y value is 4. So how does this compare to a table and a function? Well, you could probably already think for a table. So what I've got here is I went to Desmos.com, and I actually found, here's the function right here, x squared plus 3x minus 6, there it is. And then I had Desmos generate a table for it. And if I go down to where x is 2, hey, what do you know? Y is 4, exactly the same as I had when I did it by hand. And how would I do this from a graph? Well, again, my input is 2, my x value is 2. So what I would do is I would go right, here's a graph of that function. This is a graph of x squared plus 3x minus 6. That's what that graph is. So I go to 2 on the x-axis, and I just want to go up or down, whatever the case may be, until I hit the graph. So in this case, we have to go up. I'm going to go up until I hit that point on the graph, and whatever the y value is, that's what it is at 2. So what's f of 2? I go to 2, I go up, I hit the graph at 4, so f of 2 is 4. So now I've evaluated this function by hand using the calculator. I've used a table, and I've done it by a graph. Okay, let's do another example, and I think you'll. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's get my windows back up. Let's try a different function. So I'm going to just use a different label here because I don't want you to think that it's always the same label. So instead of f of x, I'm just going to use g of x. So g of x is my function. I've got it written down over here. Let me move this for a second. It's negative 2 times the absolute value of x plus 5 plus 4. There's my function. So let's pick a value. How about I want to do this at, let's pick negative 1. So I want to know what is the value of g of negative 1. That's how we say that. Okay, so what that means is everywhere where I see an x in my function, I'm going to put in negative 1. So g of 1, negative 1, sorry, is going to be negative 2 times the absolute value of negative 1 plus 5 plus 4. So I substituted in, I evaluated. Now I'm going to go to the calculator and I'm going to put this in. I'm going to find out exactly what that equals. So negative 2 times the absolute value, I have to go to math, over to num, and then absolute value is the very first choice. And I'm going to have -1 plus 5. And if you're using the old style calculator, you would have to close your parentheses here to indicate that that's everything that goes inside the absolute value signs. If you're on a newer calculator, then I use the right-hand key to get outside the absolute value signs. And then I need to put a +4 on there. And hit enter. Turns out it's -4. So g of -1 is -4. Let's verify that with a table and a graph. So I'll go back over here to Desmos. I'm done with this one. And now let's look at this one right here. Let me see if I can get a solid line here. There we go. Okay, so first of all, on the table, if I go to -1, here's my function. I put it in. You would obviously put this into the y equals screen of your calculator. And I look at a table, -1 on the x, -4 on the y. That's exactly what I expect. If I come over here and I go to -1 on the x-axis, so now I'm looking at a graph. If I go to -1, I go down, I hit the graph at -4. So if I evaluate this graph at -1, the y value is -4. They're all the same. That's how you evaluate functions using the calculator by hand, using a table, using a graph. That's all there is to it. And so what I can do now is I can actually ask you to add these things together. Let's just do one more here. I'm just going to make one up because I want you to see this. Let me say I were to do something like, let's come back over here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's just say that we'll keep it simple. So we're going to say that f of x is x plus 5. And we're going to say that g of x is 2x squared minus 3. Let's just say. Okay, so now what I could do is I could ask you this question. I could say something like, what is f of 3 plus g of 2? Okay, well, what that means is I need to figure out what f of 3 is, and I need to figure out what g of 2 is, and then I'm just going to add those two results together. You can find it by hand, you can find it using the table, you can find it using the calculator. I'm just going to do it by hand. This is an easy one. F of 3 is going to be 3 plus 5, so that means that f of 3 is 8. G of 2 is going to be, okay, well, g of 2 is going to be 2 times 2 squared minus 3. Don't forget your order of operations. Use the calculator if you need to. 2 times 2 in parentheses squared minus 3. That's going to be 5. So g of 2 is 5. And so f of 3 plus g of 2 is really 8 plus 5. So f of 3 plus g of 2 is, what's 8 plus 5? 13. There's your answer. So now I can actually ask you lots of different questions. I can ask you to compare what's greater than, what's less than, so on and so forth. There's lots of different things that we could do with this, but it's really that simple. Evaluating function takes whatever is inside the parentheses and plug it in where you see an x and simplify. That's all there is to it.